Thanks so much for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Charlene Aaron. An Arctic chill is plunging deeper into the nation's midsection and south today. The cold blast could even send temperatures crashing into the sub-zero zone in some parts of the country. That is, some are already digging out from early winter snow. A polar blast of frigid air is spilling across 2/3 of the country today, and it's about to get even colder. In many places, temperatures fell 20 to 30 degrees in less than 1 hour, coupled with strong winds.
Arctic air that will head all the way down into Texas by the middle part of the week.
And then, you got this wind chill. Man, makes it really cold.
In Denver, Colorado Tuesday, temperatures only reached a high of 16 degrees, beating the old record of 19 way back in 1916. And then there's the heavy snow and ice, causing havoc for travelers. Dozens of flights delayed and massive pileups on the roads. Tractor trailers stuck on the ice in nearly 500 crashes in Minnesota alone, including this big rig that barreled into a state trooper's patrol car.
How everyone walked away from that essentially is just nothing short of a miracle.
And thousands are digging out from under blankets of snow, including in Wisconsin, where more than a foot of snow has fallen and more is expected.
This is early for this kind of snow. We're looking for snow around Thanksgiving time, so it's a couple weeks early. Okay. And so much of it.
The nasty weather also put a damper on a church-sponsored Thanksgiving dinner in Crivitz, Wisconsin. Organizers expect to have more leftovers than anticipated.
I think the weather's going to get in the way. We were supposed to have 125, and I think if we get 100, we'll be lucky.
Forecasters say the cold weather is expected to hang around for a while. And some areas have even seen blizzard-like conditions. Michigan's Upper Peninsula has been slammed by up to 25 inches of snow, with more on the way.
President Obama wraps up his visit to China with a new agreement to curb greenhouse gas emissions. He announced he will move America to cut its levels of so-called carbon pollution. And China's president agreed to cap its emissions in the future. Obama is aiming to emit up to 28% less carbon by 2025 than the country did in 2005. The agreement follows an intense 2 days of talks.
This is an ambitious goal, but it is an achievable goal. Although there are going to continue to be tensions and disagreements between our countries, I've consistently found President Xi to be willing to engage on those differences.
America and China are still at odds on the issues of Chinese computer hacking and the country's crackdown on democracy demonstrations.
New reports today that the U.S. and its allies may be nearing a deal with Iran over its nuclear program. And social media has become the sparring ground for preventing Iran from becoming a nuclear threshold state. Chris Mitchell has that story.
In a message on his Facebook page, Prime Minister Netanyahu said his office sent a letter to the P5+1 nations, pointing out that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, publicly called for the destruction of Israel, even while he's negotiating a nuclear deal.
The leader of this country that is depicted by some as moderate, the Islamic State of Iran, has said in the last 48 hours, one, that he calls for the annihilation of Israel.
On his Twitter page, Khamenei called Israel a barbaric, wolf-like, and infanticidal regime, for which there is no cure but to be annihilated, and provided a 9-step plan for confronting Israel, including arming Palestinians in the West Bank. Reports say Iran is preparing to expand its plutonium program and may have 5 times the advanced centrifuges as previously thought. That would shorten the time it would take for Iran to become a nuclear power.
There is no moderation in Iran. It is unrepentant, unreformed. It calls for Israel's eradication. It promotes international terrorism. And as the IAEA report just said, it continues to deceive the international community about its nuclear weapons program.
Some fear with U.S. midterm elections behind him, President Obama could push through a deal with Iran. Netanyahu believes that would be a disaster.
This terrorist regime in Iran must not be allowed to become a nuclear threshold power. And I call on the P5+1 countries, don't rush into a deal that would let Iran rush to the bomb.
Netanyahu has warned against a nuclear Iran for years. It's not clear if the P5+1 will heed his warning or if it will fall on deaf ears. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The number of people signing up for insurance programs through Obamacare is falling drastically below expectations. The Department of Health and Human Services now estimates 9.1 million people will sign up next year. That is far short of the original 13 million estimate from the Congressional Budget Office.
Meanwhile, the man called an architect of the law said it had to be deliberately written in a confusing way so that it would pass. Jonathan Gruber of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology said preventing people from really understanding what was in the law was necessary so people wouldn't know what was in it and try and stop it.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
In the video posted by the Daily Caller, Gruber added he wished the process of writing Obamacare could have been transparent, but he'd rather have the law than not. He also said Obamacare could not be seen as a tax increase or it would have died. But the Obama administration later argued before the Supreme Court that it was indeed a tax. Gruber said on MSNBC Tuesday that he spoke inappropriately and that he regrets having made those remarks.
A New Hampshire election worker was fired for saying God bless you to voters. It happened before last week's election. Ruth Provencal was a poll worker in Derry, New Hampshire, and says she was electioneering. Her supervisor said that wasn't the only reason she was let go, but the Catholic League is protesting Provencal's firing, saying that it is a violation of her free speech rights and there is no way that saying God bless you could influence anyone's vote. Provencal says she only said God bless you to about a dozen or so voters and didn't see anything wrong with passing a blessing to someone after they voted.
The Washington National Cathedral is hosting a Muslim prayer service for the first time this Friday. The event is planned by the cathedral's director of liturgy and the South African ambassador to the United States. The ambassador is a Muslim. The Episcopal Cathedral has hosted Muslims at various interfaith services in the past, but planners say this is the first time that the cathedral has invited Muslims to lead their own prayers there.
A Maryland school district is becoming religion neutral. School board officials in Montgomery County voted Tuesday to get rid of all references to religious holidays on the school calendar, including Easter and Christmas. The move comes after Islamic families asked for a Muslim holiday to be recognized the same way Jewish holidays are.
The school board basically stripped any designation of Christmas, Easter, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. And as a member of the Muslim community, that's not what I was looking for.
In 2015, the Muslim Eid holiday and Yom Kippur fall on the same day, but some board members say this doesn't solve the issue of closing on the Eid in the future.
In North Carolina, at least 6 officials have resigned their jobs rather than be forced to perform same-sex marriage ceremonies. Heather Sells spoke with one magistrate about his decision, what it's cost him, and where he goes from here.
They also have been.
John Callum has worked as a magistrate in rural Rockingham County for over a decade. During that time, he has closely watched the growing momentum of gay marriage and wondered what it might mean for him.
I had told some of my co-workers, if it ever gets down to that, where I'm asked to perform same-sex marriage, I'm not going to be able to do it.
That moment happened last month when a federal judge struck down North Carolina's marriage amendment. Callum told his supervisor, I can't perform a gay marriage. The following day, the state took its stand, comply or lose your job.
I showed up at 4 o'clock, ready for my shift. There was no discussion. It was just 2 judges reiterating what the administrative office of the courts had said. This is now the law. We're here to uphold the law, therefore you will do it.
Callum says he tried to keep his job, even offering to work the 3rd shift to avoid marrying same-sex couples, but in the end he felt he had no choice.
You know, Genesis 2:24 is pretty clear, you know, about marriage being instituted by God.
Callum says he relies on the word not only for this decision, but for the future. He and his wife are raising their grandchildren and had counted on his job.
You know, I'm an older person, I'm not a young person. I'm 66 years old. And I know that trying to find a job when you're 66 years old is kind of hard. if not impossible, but nothing is impossible in God's eyes.
His struggle may be just the beginning as gay marriage grows and acceptance for religious liberty fades. North Carolina Senate Leader Phil Berger believes the state courts can accommodate workers like Callum. He's working on legislation that would protect religious beliefs and lead the state courts to reverse course.
I think, unfortunately, what we've seen in North Carolina is a failure on the part of North Carolina to provide an appropriate accommodation for the religious beliefs of magistrates in particular.
For Callum's pastor, the situation has provided a reality check.
I told our congregation that if they can tell a magistrate last week, you have to perform this ceremony, what's to prevent them from telling me next week I have to do it?
And Callum's stand is also bringing hope and encouragement to his community.
Strangers, people I didn't even know, who came up and said, you know, thank you for standing up, thank you for taking a position, and we appreciate you and we're praying for you.
Reporting in Rockingham County, North Carolina, Heather Sells, CBN News.
The U.S. government is getting near daily reports of drone sightings, a cause for concern for federal aviation officials. They say the government is sometimes getting 2 or 3 reports per day of drones flying near airplanes and helicopters or close to airports without permission. It is a sharp increase from just 2 years ago. The officials say many of the reports, though, are unconfirmed.
A Dutch man had 2 wireless computer chips implanted in his body. He did it so he could store digital money and use chips for other purposes like program an alarm clock. Martin Wismeyer is an entrepreneur, and the London Telegraph reports that he decided the chips aren't secure enough yet to use permanently. He says the chips need to be encrypted so that information can't be stolen from them. But he says the experiment was a success. He says the chips can be used not only for digital currency, but as keys for your house or monitoring your health, even helping call a doctor if you have a heart attack. And he believes people who use the chips are helping to make them socially acceptable.
Coming up, the tragic loss has stunned Christians around the world. We've got the latest on what happened to Pastor Miles Monroe. We continue to learn more about the Bahamas plane crash that killed celebrated Pastor Miles Monroe.
Pastor Monroe, his wife and co-pastor Ruth, and 3 other ministry leaders were also killed.
The ministry's senior vice president, Dr. Richard Pender, youth pastors LeVard and Riddell Parks, and their son Johannan were all among the 9 people killed when their small private plane crashed Sunday evening.
Cultivate means to bring out the best in everything around you.
Dr. Miles Monroe was founder and president of Bahamas Faith Ministries International. The Bahamas native founded the ministry in the early 1980s after studying at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But with his wife by his side, he quickly became an influential international religious leader, writing dozens of books and delivering sermons around the world, often appearing on popular Christian programs like CBN 700 Club.
People are becoming aware that life cannot go on as usual anymore, that their experience with God has to be something that is relevant. It has to be consistent with their present day needs, and that they also need to have a sense of impacting their community, their environment.
Monroe's impact on his environment and community was clear when church leaders broke the news of his death to members of the church. Those are the painful sobs shed upon hearing Dr. Monroe, his wife, and 7 others were killed when their private jet crashed.
Words cannot express what we feel tonight.
Aviation experts say their private plane had departed from the capital of Nassau and crashed into a shipping container crane about 5 p.m. Sunday evening while attempting to land at Grand Bahama International Airport in Freeport. Severe weather was likely a factor in the small plane crash. A commercial flight making the same route had turned back because it was unable to land around the same time as Monroe's flight. Dr. Monroe and his wife Ruth had 2 children. There is still one unidentified victim. The Prime Minister of Bahamas called Monroe indisputably one of the most globally recognized religious leaders that nation had ever produced.
Up next, some call her the first hero of the Iraq War. Jessica Lynch shares her terrifying ordeal from private first class to prisoner of war. Veterans Day 2014 was special for military families across the country.
What did you think when I walked in?
It was exciting.
In Atlanta, this little girl was reunited with her father after his 7-month deployment to Afghanistan. In Illinois, it was an emotional day for a 94-year-old World War II veteran. Howard Lehman received awards for his service in the Army 65 years ago.
I've been trying to do this for quite a long time to bring this together for him. And I'm so proud today that it's able to be happening.
In total, Lehman received 10 medals. The highest award he received on Veterans Day was the Bronze Star.
Army Private Jessica Lynch made headlines in 2003 when she was captured and held hostage by Iraqi soldiers.
Then her dramatic rescue was seen around the world and she became an instant hero. Wendy Griffith talks with Lynch about the day that she will never forget.
The things that I remember very clear. It seems like it was yesterday.
Okay, I'm going in.
The noise of helicopters and gunshots and the Humvees rolling through.
Come on, man, let's get this girl.
I remember that moment and just how scared I was.
It's okay, it's okay.
United States Army supply convoy was ambushed by irregular Iraqi forces.
9 days earlier, in late March of 2003, 19-year-old Army Private Jessica Lynch of Palestine, West Virginia, experienced what she calls the deadliest day. Her supply convoy took a wrong turn, was ambushed, and came under heavy fire. Her gun jammed. All she could do was close her eyes and pray. The next thing she knew, she was in an Iraqi hospital with a fractured spine, broken arm, and shattered left leg, and no memory of the past 3 hours.
There were all kinds of stories and rumors about what actually happened to you, whether you were tortured, sexually abused.
There are reports that said that this is what occurred, and you know, they have medical evidence of saying this is this and that took place. But I don't really speak about it because I don't remember it. I wasn't alert and conscious at the time.
What Lynch does remember is the excellent medical care she received from the Iraqi doctors and nurses.
They almost became like my guardians. Like, I felt weird. I mean, like, this is weird to say, but I really felt like they were my protectors.
Like, you were surprised that the Iraqi doctors were trying to keep you alive.
Right.
Were you a strong believer in Christ at the time?
Yeah, because, I mean, to be honest, I had nobody else to rely on but him. Like, I had no one to talk to.
Although she didn't know it at the time, her best friend, who drove their vehicle, died in the same hospital. 11 fellow soldiers had been killed. Others were wounded or captured. Then, on April 1st, she heard the sound of freedom.
Are you in any pain?
It took me a little bit to actually realize what was happening. But then, you know, everything started happening so fast. They were surrounding me, you know. The main goal was just to get me outside of the hospital as quickly as possible to get me inside of the helicopter and get to Kuwait where, you know, it was a safe haven that we were out of enemy zone.
We're on a plane now, and we're going to go to Kuwait, okay?
Almost 4 months later, Lynch came home to a hero's welcome and later received 3 medals, including the Purple Heart. Although no longer in the headlines, Lynch still carries the trauma, both physically and mentally.
I have really bad nightmares where these Iraqi men are chasing me.
Still?
And it's been this, and it's the same dream that, or nightmare, that occurs every single time. Yeah, it's getting up every morning and, you know, putting on my brace and the what if situation.
So you wear a brace on your leg?
I do. I have a have a leg brace that I wear because of the nerve damage that occurred within my back. I lost all feeling on my left side.
In the past decade, Jessica co-wrote a New York Times bestseller, earned her teaching degree, and became a mother to a little girl. Now, she's added actress to her resume, playing a soldier in Virtuous, a film celebrating the virtuous woman in today's society.
Did you ever think you'd be acting?
No. No, this is something that's completely out of my comfort zone, but I'm glad that I gave it a shot and that I am a part of this film.
Jessica says 11 years and 21 surgeries later, she's still uncomfortable with the label hero and points to those brave men and women serving right now on the front lines for our freedom.
We need to still continue to pray and support them until they're all home safely.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Certainly, she's 100% right. We need to continue to pray for those brave men and women who protect our freedoms.
And she is a hero, so grateful to see the success she's had after coming home. Blessed indeed. Stay with us. We are coming right back.
Finally today in West Africa, Liberian health officials say the rate of Ebola infections declined in their country by as much as 25% last week.
Monrovia Pastor Emery David told CBN that churches and Christian prayers have made a big difference.
Liberia being a Christian nation, the church has been fasting and praying. So prayer has been an immense part of this Ebola fight.
And CBN relief teams continue to bring food and other help to surviving Ebola victims. We've also sponsored seminars and Ebola education efforts in Liberian towns and villages. We provided buckets and chlorine to help prevent the spread of the deadly disease. For more with Emery David, log on to Gary Lane's blog, The Global Lane, at cbnnews.com.
Thank God. Prayers are being answered.
Amen.
Well, that's going to do it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
We want to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a wonderful Wednesday, everybody.